7:30. Going to call the Committee on Infrastructure to order. It's June 26, 2024. We're in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Absolutely. Alderman Thibodeau?
Here.
Alderman Sullivan?
Here.
Alderman Clee is here. Alderman Dowd?
Present.
And Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
He's got to explain why.
I'm unable to make the meeting due to medical reasons, and I can hear you, and I'm in the room alone.
All right. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on tonight's agenda? No? Communications?
From Wayne Husband, PE, Senior Traffic Engineer, in regards to Division of Public Works, support of pending legislation 024-018.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions?
Resolution R24058, naming D'Antonio Road, Drive, D'Antonio Drive. Mr. Chairman, I motion to recommend final passage.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of R24058. Before we get started, if you read the resolution itself, you'll see that this is part of the purchase and sale agreement that we named the street after Mr. D'Antonio, who was an Army war hero from World War II, who was decorated by Dwight Eisenhower. So, is there any questions?
That was my only question.
Seeing none, all in favor signify, roll call.
Roll call, yes. Alderman Thibodeau?
Aye. Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Clee says yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien?
Yes.
You have 5 yeas.
Okay. New business ordinances?
Ordinance O24-018, no parking or stopping on a section of the east side of Manchester Street. Mr. Chairman, I motion to recommend final passage.
Okay, the motion on the floor is for final passage of O24-018. Again, I will explain. This past year at Pennachuck, we had issues with the cars backing up on Manchester Street, and we were not allowed to add another lane for the parents to park there, so it caused issues. This year, there's going to be 250 more students in the school and at least 12 additional staff. So we are under an understanding with the State Department of Motor Vehicles, that we don't have traffic back up to Henry Burke. It's almost happened this year. It would definitely happen this coming year. So we have the recommendation of the traffic engineer from the DPW that approves this motion. We're going to put signs, no parking, standing, or stopping at any time during school hours on Manchester Street. And they will be able to park on Ferry Road if they back up. So, any other questions on? No? Yes?
Just for clarification, did you say there's 250 new students?
Yes. You'll recall that when the middle school project to equal the 3 schools, at Pennachuck, we double the size of the school. So.
Double the size of the capacity?
Yes.
So total capacity, if you filled it up entirely, is about 800 students. I believe there's 700 or 750, something like that, at Pennachuck after they did the redistricting of the middle schools, starting in September. So, Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. When you say a section of Manchester Street, I'm just looking at it on the map. Is it the section of Manchester Street from Pennachuck to Henry Burke Highway?
Yes, that's
Okay.
in the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because there have already been issues with them, potential accidents happening for a number of reasons, but this has got the full approval of Wayne Husband.
Okay.
All right? Any other discussion? I want to watch for his hand if he puts his hand up.
Yeah, I have been, yeah.
Okay, in that case, it's for final passage, we call a roll?
Yes. Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Cleese says yes. Alderman Dow?
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien?
Yes.
You have 5 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay. Next.
At this time, I'd like to, ordinance O24-019, reserving a parking space in front of 8 East Pearl Street. Okay, this is where I'm gonna get a little confused, because I'm gonna make an amendment to it, so, should I make the motion for the amendment first?
We'll
Or
Make the motion first, it'll
okay.
be on the floor for discussion, then you make the motion.
Okay, thank you. I motion to recommend final passage, and at this time, I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Okay, so the motion on the floor at the current time is for final passage of vote 24019 as written, and Alderman Clee wants to make a change.
Yes, an amendment. I'm going to read the amended change and then ask Director Hannum to explain it, if that's okay. I think everyone has a copy of the amendment in front of them. The amendment will read to 2 parking spaces at 11 Court Street versus the single parking space at East Pearl Street. This changes the title, it changes E2, and I believe that's all, and if it's okay, Director Hannum, to
Changes on the back.
oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. The purpose also has a change as well as the analysis. And you can recognize her.
Okay,
Liz
Hannah?
Hannum, Economic Development Director. We've been talking about this for several months, and the mayor has been working with the Veterans Association, and the whole time I thought he was talking about the VFW, and he was actually talking about the American Legion. So I put in the legislation for the VFW, but it's actually the 2 spaces in front of the American Legion on Court Street, right by Library Alley. I don't know, if you want to bring up the GIS, we can do that, but
does
it will
everybody
be,
know where we're talking about?
I do, yes.
By
Okay.
Peacock Players?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't think.
Okay, so I don't need to do that. Okay.
Yeah, so this will be, many of their patrons are disabled, and so they've been having a really hard time, and just putting a handicap space there wasn't gonna work for them either. They needed dedicated spaces, because they use it quite frequently throughout the day. And then you'll notice there's still no overnight parking in that space.
Okay. Alderman Clee?
Yeah, I just have one question. Putting the space there does not necessarily guarantee that it will be access to them.
This would dedicate those 2 spaces to them. So we would sign it as American Legion spaces.
May I?
Yes.
I didn't think that was legal to do that. Is it?
Mhm.
I thought the state did not allow us to designate a parking space in front of a private property, because then we're technically deeding that piece of city property to them.
It's definitely not a practice that we want to do very often, but this is an exception, and it is legal.
Okay.
So we have run this through the legal department and made sure that it was all appropriate to do.
So the signage will read for their purpose only?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions on the amendment? Yes?
Thank you. How does the VFW feel? Because they had it and now they don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they're watching tonight, but,
Yeah. We
That was
they
the
had it,
question
now
I
they
asked.
don't. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has spoken to them. I'm assuming that the mayor was talking with the American Legion the whole time.
Oh, so it was just miscommunication.
Yes, so
Okay.
I think they didn't know what they're losing.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So we're voting on the amendment, would you please call the roll?
No, Alderman.
Oh, Alderman, yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. I'm gonna support this. I think there is definitely a worthwhile cause. I agree with Ms. Hannum that we ought to take this on a case-by-case basis. The reason I say so is my sister lives in Everett, Massachusetts. And people down there have designated handicap parking right in front of their house. Now, they do qualify for the plates and everything else and are certified by the doctor, but that takes away the flavor of everybody parking. So, it definitely needs to be per case, valued, and, but I will support this. It is a worthwhile cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. Would you call the roll?
Sure.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Alderman
Who
Sullivan.
enforces it? Does the, want to get it right, the American Legion, do they enforce it?
The parking department would enforce it.
Okay.
I would imagine if there's somebody illegally parked there, they'll call and have the parking people come and.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, yes,
Just,
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes. So Patricia's question, so although I agree with this, are we opening up a landslide of requests? So just a point of thought, that's all, I guess.
I think we've had a lot of requests in the past, as far as by designating to specific people, it's a case-by-case basis on requirements and need. Usually we don't do it for residential homes per se, but Alderman Clee?
Thank you. I think before we, if we do pass this here, before we hear it at the Board of Aldermen, I'd like to know what the NRO or the state law that allows us to do this, because I will be honest with you, in the past, when I specifically did have a constituent who came forward who wanted to designate a parking space in front of their business. The best we could do was create a handicap spot, and that did not guarantee that that would always be available, and it was made very clear, which is why I made the statement that I made. I don't mistrust anything, but people from the public have already been told no. So
we do
now that
have-
we're doing this, I just,
Yeah.
I agree with Alderman Thibodeau that we could be opening up the floodgates of saying, we set a precedent. You did it here, and I don't know if it's been done in the past, so.
We do have precedent, so
Okay.
Delenas House, those spaces are dedicated to Delenas House. There are 8 spaces for them. They do have a patron that pays for those, so this would be at no charge, but it's the same principle.
Man.
Alderman Clee?
The Delenas House is done on a lease type thing, which is different than this one is going to be. We're gonna say they've got 2 spaces 24/7 that no one can park at.
No.
Delenas is 24/7, but it is leased. Low rate, but it's still leased.
Yeah.
So are we doing a lease agreement with them on this, with a zero?
So if you look at the legislation, it's upon authorization by the Infrastructure Committee, the city may lease parking lots or spaces to non-city entities at a rate approved by the Infrastructure Committee. So we are leasing them technically. It would just be signed dedicated.
Okay, so we're leasing, technically
Yeah,
it's a lease.
legally, we are leasing them.
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
lease that we're doing for $0 with
Yes.
no overnight parking, so it's not a 24/7.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you so much. That makes me feel a little bit better, that we're actually doing a formal lease and not just almost deeding, because that's the way I look at it.
Right.
So we give it to somebody, we're deeding it to them.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lease, and we can take this back at any time.
Yeah,
That's what a lease would do,
and we
yeah.
did spend a lot of time trying to figure out how we could avoid setting this precedent, because it is kind of opening up a can of worms, but the level of need here is extreme, and so we decided that this would be the only way forward here.
Thank you.
Just as
Yeah.
a side comment, if there's anybody that deserves them, it's veterans that have protected our country.
Oh, yeah, no argument for that.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? If not, please call the roll.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Clee says yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien?
Yes.
You have 5 yeas.
Okay, now we'll be voting on the.
Motion as amended?
Yes, so 2419 is amended.
Okay. I make a motion to recommend final passage of O24-019 as amended.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to pass 024019 as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Cleese says yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
You have 5 yeas on that.
Okay. Next.
Yes, ordinance 024-020, authorizing a stop sign at D'Antonio Drive at its intersection with Buck Meadow Road. Mr. Chairman, I motion for final passage.
Okay, the motion on the floor is the final passage of 024020. This is the road that goes up to the new middle school. And the stop sign is at no cost because it's part of the project and it's already in place but it needs to be added to the anytime we have a stop sign, it has to be on the legislation. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Yes, Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Cleese says yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
You have 5 yeas.
Okay, petitions,
There's none?
tabled in committee, I don't think we're taking that off, I don't see anybody jumping up and down in the audience.
He seems very calm out there.
General discussion? None? Public comment, is there anybody who wishes to speak in public comment that's not related to the city? No, I'm just kidding.
Good evening, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I wanted to come before you tonight and suggest maybe that we have an agenda item where we could do just a general project update on miscellaneous infrastructure, particularly building projects that may be going on within the city that you might have an interest in. We have a capital improvement project with the Hunt Building currently, scoped out, looking to get underway. We're currently under construction with the Arlington Street Community Center. We are anticipating going under construction with the with some maintenance in City Hall here. I wanted to just suggest that maybe at your meeting in July or August we could have it on the agenda to talk about some of these projects, to inform you of some of what's going on there. One that I think might be of interest is we're about to enter into a contract to do a feasibility study on and develop a strategic plan for 14 Court Street. I know this is something that was asked of a couple of years ago, so we got contracts either in place or getting to be in place to develop a business plan of sorts for 14 Court Street. So providing you an update on that. As well as I wanted to just kind of flag for you that we have the joint police commissioners and Committee on Infrastructure meeting, and we are currently in design with the new education and training facility for the police department. I anticipate that going under construction in the fall. So this body would need to meet jointly with the police commissioners, monthly for that project. Wanted to also put on your radar is a need for this body also to join in with the DPW again, because it looks as though we're going to be going under construction in a couple of years, but starting of the design of potentially the garage. I wanted to flag that for you for planning purposes, because that would be another meeting. And so I wanted to kind of tease this out to kind of point out that you may have a busy fall in front of you. And talk through scheduling and coordination, whatnot. I'll work with Chairman O'Brien on these details, but really just wanted to kind of put that all on your radar now this summer, as I'm starting to think about planning over the next six months or so, and didn't want anyone to be caught by surprise.
Yeah, I'll pass that along to Alderman O'Brien. He's on.
Got it.
Could I-
Yes, Alderman Sullivan?
If possible, just to add on to that, I don't know if it'd be ready, but maybe a big picture view, since we're talking about infrastructure city paving, how it's going this summer. I mean, just kind of a status bar update on how it's going. And then I know we appropriated money for the sewer system. Would love updates on that as well, if it's actually started.
So I will relay that to DPW and,
Okay.
and ask them maybe to join me that night.
Okay,
But it's not something I could speak to, but
Okay.
absolutely, I can have them with me and see if they can, I'm sure they would be delighted to give a status update.
real big picture.
Yeah, of
nothing-
course. Yep.
nothing big.
It's those types of things, and if you have other ideas in the back of your mind that you want to kind of hear about, I want to, if I know about them, we'll add it to the agenda, and I just think that's a good use of trying to keep the public informed and you informed as well.
Did you mention the riverfront project?
I was just gonna ask that
Yeah,
one.
that's one that we, that's one
Yeah.
that we could do as well. Yep,
Yeah.
that would be Director Hannum,
Yeah.
but we can ask her. Director Sullivan, he could do some, I'm sure, as well. But I just, I wanted to put this on your radar. It's over the years, something I've traditionally done in August for the Committee on Infrastructure, and so I wanted to kind of just make it fresh in your mind.
Great.
Any other questions, Sandra? As I mentioned last night, but it may have been overshadowed by other little things that were going on in the meeting. We're going to try and have a meeting of the Joint Special School Building Committee, the Board of Education, and the Board of Aldermen at the new McCarthy School before it opens. We verified today that it has live television coverage, camera coverage at both the gymnasium and the cafetorium. So it will be a limited access, because if you see one floor of academic, they're all the same. So, but the A wing will be available for people to see the gymnasium, the cafetorium, and some of those classrooms, so. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right.
Remarks by,
Remarks by Alderman?
just a quick one. Just a quick one.
What? Oh, yes, Alderman Clay.
Thank you. This meeting went really well, but I want to just take a second to thank Director Cummings for bringing that forward, and I know our chairman will be putting that forward, and I'm glad that the riverfront was brought up. I know that it's hard to give dates on that one because it's kind of an influx type thing, but I think the public would love to be hearing about that. They're seeing all these changes over there, and there's also going to be a change to the direction of that road, becoming a one-way on Water Street and affecting Factory as well. So I think that's all good for the public to be able to hear. And I believe that Alderman.
O'Brien.
O'Brien. I know, my mind went blank. Thank you so much. I was looking right at his name, too.
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, the unknown alderman, thank you.
I know.
No, I agree, just to echo what Alderman Clee has said. Mr. Cummings, I will get a hold of you, we'll work together with Donna to get the proper scheduling done, and we'll see if we could put that somewhat as a priority. The next thing is, like I said, I'm unable to be at the meetings because of medical reasons until we go under the knife. But, however, I really want to thank Alderman Dowd. I know you're on chairman of other committees and everything else like that. Really, thank you for backfilling for me. I appreciate it.
No problem, Alderman O'Brien. All right, does someone have a motion? Alderman Sullivan.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion on the floor is to adjourn. Would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes, please.
Alderman Clee? Is yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien?
Who am I?
Alderman O'Brien, I got you right. I was looking right at your name and still couldn't say it. Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
you're fine, you're fine. I vote yes, thank you.
We're adjourned at 7:54 PM. Thank you, everyone.